Let's go over the categories of what categories are going to give you more business and what categories are going to give you less business with marketing. So, what's the worst potential category of marketing you could do and its effectiveness? Cold calls. What kind of return can you expect from cold calls? 1%. What's a cold call? You doing marketing to somebody you don't know, they don't know you, in other words, there's no trust, and you don't even know if they have a problem. It's a crapshoot. That's called a cold call. It's the worst type of business. It's the worst type of marketing you could do. It's the worst type of business you can get. It's the most expensive type of business, and it's the worst type of business. It's called cold call advertising. That's what most chiropractors do. Facebook is cold call advertising. You don't know them, they don't know you. You don't even know if they got back pain, neck pain. You don't even know if they have something relative to what you do. Now, the good thing about Facebook is you can segment it so much. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go into, the more you segment it, and the more you do certain things, like a landing page and an opt-in and a follow educational sales video series, the more effective it gets. So that's a cold call. Direct mail, TV, radio, those are cold calls, unless you're taking direct mail and you got a list that you're sending it to with people with arthritis, that kind of thing. Okay, so we want to stay away from cold calls as much as possible. What is the next return? 7% is passive referrals. What's a passive referral? Well, that's when you help somebody, they go out and eventually refer somebody into your office. Now, most doctors think that their passive referral is way greater than what it is. Only 7% of the population passively referrals. In other words, how many products and services do you routinely buy every day? As an example, yesterday or the day before, how many things did you buy that you were satisfied with the price, the quality, or the service? And did you go out of your way to refer somebody to go buy that product or service? How many of you guys did that yesterday? Day before? Day before that? Day before that? You see? You're constantly buying product. Your patients are coming in. You gave them the service, the time, the money, everything that's expected, and they move on with their life and they never tell anybody. Only 7% refer. And remember, it's the 80-20% principle of the people refer. It's 20% of your people refer 80% of your business. So you got to know who that 20% is. So can we wait around for passive referrals if only 7% refer? No, we can't wait for that. What's the next one? Leads. Leads are 15%. Well, why do leads have a greater return than a passive referral or, say, a cold call? What's a lead? A lead is somebody who has what you deliver to some degree. In other words, somebody that does have back pain, neck pain, headaches, car injury. In other words, the need for what you do, they have to some degree. That's a lead. Okay? Now, your ability to respond to that and how you respond to that, are you going to respond to that with publicity? Are you going to respond to that with advertising? Are you going to respond to that with educational sales? See? You always have a choice. In any category, you have a choice. But obviously, we take a lead, somebody who has back pain, neck pain. Remember I told you we'll filter cold calls and we'll ask them, have you in the past or present have any back pain, neck pain, car injury, old injury? Remember I told you that? That's the person who gets called to our a presentation. How easy is it to get that patient as a new, when we do our educational sales, even though it's a cold call, when we do our educational sales to that person, how easy is it to get them as patients? Shooting ducks in a barrel. Really easy. They got a problem and they listen to our educational sales presentation we covered yesterday. They're coming in. We're getting them. Even though it's a cold call. Now, obviously, if it's not a cold call, it even gets better. Then we go into what's called active referrals. What are active referrals? You doing A, B, C, and D and creating a referral on the spot. That's an active referral. In other words, a patient comes in, you know how to do educational sales with that patient for their spouse, their mother, father, brother, sister, and you know how to get them in the next visit or come with them, something like that. That's an active referral. That's 55%. That's high probability. Of course, it has to do with what? Your skill level. Your skill level. It takes knowledge and skill to know educational sales. You don't know educational sales, you just drop down to advertising statistics. So what's the probability now? Is that person going to be an 8%er within the next year? That's where your stat is when you go to advertising. Because they have to have need. So if you don't know how to do educational sales, they have to have need. And what category of market is that? 8%. That's not 8% a day. Do you understand this? That's not 8% a week. That's not 8% a month. That's 8% a year. In other words, over the next year, 365 days, there's an 8% chance that person's going to come in. You want to wait around for those kind of numbers? You can't. You can't. Okay, that's why we do educational sales. And then the highest return is introduction marketing. Introduction combined with educational sales. Introduction. So who is that classically? It's classically the people who have referred to you, their circle of influence that has a gateway. Let me say that again. It's people who have already referred to you, that they send you, or you get in front of their circle of influence, mother, father, brother, sister, that has a gateway. And what percentage of people have gateways? Chiropractic gateways? 68%. When you take 75% of the 92%, if you put that in the whole category and 8%, it's about 68% of the population. Remember, the number one disability in the United States is what? Arthritis. How many people have arthritis? 1 in 5. 1 in 5 have osteoarthritis. Is that a chiropractic problem? Oh yeah. Introduction educational sales is night and day difference between cold calls at 1%. You walk into 20 people, 10 people, one person, and that person got to you through one of your family members, one of your patients who's already referred, and they have any gateway. What's your likelihood of getting them as a patient? 75%. So you see how we want to narrow. You got limited time and money. You can't keep chasing cold calls. You can't chase one cold call after another category. You can't wait around for 7% referrals. You have to be proactive, and you got to use the marketing that works the best. Educational sales. That's why I don't even do cold calling. If I'm going to, or excuse me, advertise. If I'm going to do a cold call, it's not going to be with advertising. It's not going to be with publicity. I'm going to do it with educational sales, or it's going to be a complete, almost a loss, because it's only going to be 8% a year that's going to be effective for that advertising or that publicity. It's too small of a number. But as soon as I switched to educational sales, I just significantly increased the likelihood of getting a tremendous more business than 1 or 3% from advertising. Now I'm up to 68% potential, not 1 to 3%. See the difference this makes? You see why I'm crazy about educational sales? And you're in real trouble if you don't know it. You're real limited if you don't know it. You're stuck with that 8%. You're stuck with cold calls and 8% and 7% passive referrals. That's why you're stuck at the numbers you're at. You're getting market forces is what you're getting. You're typically getting the 8%, but you'd be in real trouble if you didn't know how to keep them. He knows how to keep them. You'd be in real trouble if you didn't know how to keep them. The good news is you know how to keep them. That's because that's the first thing you have to know. So now you just need to add them more. Because as soon as you add them, you already know how to keep them. So it's going to shoot up real fast. That's why you want to do educational sales. So you want to combine. If I have time and money, that's where I want to focus my time and money, is on educational sales with a trusted category, and that's called what? Circle of influence. Three categories of circle of influence, right? Control, influence. Those two categories will buy a coupon for their family member or friend. The third category, concern, they won't, but I can still get them in as a patient. Once it goes outside of that category, I'm now into the lead. They won't do anything for me. See how this works? Okay? So that's the percentages of where you're going to get your business, and the quicker you increase your knowledge and skill level up to the trusted category with educational sales, that's when you're going to get a tremendous amount. It's way more business than you physically can handle is what it is. And that's exactly how I needed 2 associate doctors, saw 350 patient visits a week. We had a 74% referral rate. And we just opened one office after the other because we taught them educational sales and patient education. So we knew how to get them, even though they weren't looking for a chiropractor, and then we knew how to keep them. And that's how we opened 77 offices in 20 states in only 9 years.